Today, we're diving into a topic that's been causing concern in many localities across the United States: the alarming trend of retail store closures. As we witness the shifting landscape of brick and mortar businesses, we find ourselves asking, is there any way to reverse this trend and revitalize our local economies? Today, we have the privilege of delving into a groundbreaking study conducted by Oxford University, shedding light on the remarkable success story of Espoo, Finland. Espoo has earned the title of the most sustainable city in Europe, boasting achievements not only in business, but also in their environmental practices, city organizations, and overall community well-being. But how did they achieve this remarkable turnaround? And more importantly, what lessons can we draw from their success to address the challenges faced by our local businesses here in the United States? Joining us for this insightful discussion is Eero Vaara, a professor of Oxford University who led the research on Espoo's success, and MBA candidate Nakul Thomas, who has been actively involved in understanding the intricacies of this transformative journey. Together, they will help me unravel the strategies that turned Espoo into a sustainable haven and explore how these principles can be applied to breathe new life into our local retail scenes by making our cities havens of this new superpower of artificial intelligence and narrative storytelling strategies. These have been studied for decades at Oxford University, especially under the Dean of Oxford University, Dr. Sumitra Dutta. Right now, get ready for an eye-opening conversation on building resilient, fostering sustainability, and reinvigorating our local economies. First of all, let me say what sparked the conversation between Nakul and me was my wife and I went to Orinda, and we went to this cool little bar with music, and on the way there, I saw that probably 70% of the retail storefronts were shuttered. And I went, oh my goodness. And this is a wealthy community, and that's kind of what sparked the conversation with Nakul. So that's kind of how this got started. And then I had just seen so much devastation in San Francisco by all the shuttered retail stores, and I thought, we don't want that here. What can we do to take action? So, because I'm a real action guy, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, that's just, from the time I was 22, I was raised at NBC TV and radio networks in New York to be a go-getter, really. You were only as good as your last show, and if you didn't get the story, you weren't doing your job. So you really had to go for things. I end up with a great staff and crew. We ended up winning 2 Peabody Awards for documentaries that we produced for NBC, The Battered American Marriage and The Fourth Horseman of the Apocalypse, World Hunger. Sports Illustrated wrote me up as being one of the most impactful interviewers of peak performers on earth because I interviewed the world's top athletes at the peak of their career, at the Super Bowl, World Series, etc. But I've also spent about 15 years in the TV infomercial industry, interviewing people and selling products through interviews. So I've been on all sides of media, you name it, and I kind of been there. Enough about me. We've got a lot to talk about because we see this as a huge opportunity and we want to learn as much as fast as we can. Welcome back to the podcast listening show. It's your friend in commerce, Mike Hayes. Today, we're diving into a seriously cool topic: the Oxford University and Professor Eero Vaara's game-changing research on using narrative storytelling as a strategic tool for creating a brighter future for everyone, from families, small businesses, or large ones, groups, and even for cities like mine or yours. Just in listening to this, you'll discover how you can become a rock star in your city with the simplicity of podcast listening strategies of getting the right people to listen to the right podcasts. Right now, we've got who I believe is the world's top academic strategy expert in Professor Eero Vaara. This Oxford University researcher is like a rock star of narrative storytelling strategies. And to make sure I deliver everything that I can from this interview for you, I've got my next door neighbor and friend, Nakul Thomas, who's doing his MBA at Oxford University and is knee-deep in this strategy for mergers and acquisitions. Nakul knows Professor Vara personally, so we've got some serious inside scoops for you. Together, in a common sense way, we're going to unravel the power of narrative storytelling, how it's shaking things up in the business world, and why it's a game changer for us, for our cities, and for all organizations. So turn off all distractions and get ready for an enlightening conversation here on Podcast Listening. Professor Vara, it's great to meet you, and welcome to the podcast.
So let me again say that it's a huge honor and privilege, and it's just great to meet you as well. But I'll start from now by saying that I've been here at Oxford for about 5 years now. So also, by the way, I've spent some time at Stanford University, and I'll get to that in the sense of I know a little bit about the Bay Area, so it's not entirely new to me either. And as Nakul knows very well, lately I've been mostly interested for about, 15 years, 20 years in new approaches to strategy work, which is to see strategy work from new angles, which I needed really to deal with the big challenges we're facing. So that's the big practical reason for that. There's a theoretical reason as well, in the sense of feel that we need to update our understanding of what strategy and decisions are all about. So I've been looking at things like open strategy, and especially important have been these narrative storytelling perspectives that we're going to focus on here, but also other things that we discussed in class. And I was really happy about our conversations here, no bullshit approaches. So
let me try to summarize for people that are new to this information, that basically what we're talking about is, if I'm correct, is the strategy of using a narrative story about a future outcome and then getting the buy-in from the story and evolving the story to perfect it and fine-tune it and recruit more people into the story so that it becomes a reality. Is that a pretty good summary? And what was the outcome of doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a great summary, and I'm so enthusiastic about that I'm probably going to all kinds of sidelights here, but it's definitely about the future, and strategies are usually about the future. There's a point for this particular city organization because they want to distinguish themselves and probably need to do this. It goes well with the idea of a narrative that there's history, there's now, and then there's the future. But it's definitely about the future. And the point, I think, is that both the content of the story, in terms of what's in that, in terms of the essence of the strategy, is enable something that encourages people to do the things that are needed. But there's also the approach they have taken still do, which is to not see it as a story that the top guys, the mayor and his team, would develop and then share with everyone else, but it would be more like a living story. So that in this process, the story is the content and the nature of the story would also be shaped by those who are participating in it. I think it has created a lot of excitement and a lot of good things in terms of encouraging people in these different parts of ESPO organization to be bolder in terms of moving forward with the future in mind. From my bird's eye view, what has been the biggest achievement. But I think that's been to me the most important effect.
Well, I do have some questions about what was happening at ESPO at that time, and now with new technology that has to do with storytelling and media, and really some of the details of it that are about expansion and game playing and recruiting all the generations and really getting everyone involved. But before I do that, let me ask Nakul, who has been a student and a fan, if I may, to add anything or ask any question.
I think this is great. I've heard, Eero talking about living strategy and kind of how, even in the corporate world, how this can make a big difference. And I feel like, this type of mindset of inclusion, cumulative understanding of purpose, I have seen makes more momentum, even in my line of work, which is more on the M&A integration side of things after the deal is done. In our type of work, when we deem something a success, is when the culture itself has bought into the transformation. With awesome education like this, when we go into deals like this now, during implementation, we're looking at a bottoms-up approach of how do we make sure that we can get the organization cohort designed in a way to provide inputs to the strategy that we can deploy as the organization grows and matures, the results have a completely different meaning. In terms of which sector we deploy this type of outlook on strategy, I think it definitely renders a much better outcome than looking at it highly from a top-down perspective and kind of rolling it out that way. So I'm 100% sold on, the way we look at new ways of strategy building.
What if I told you that right here in our own backyard, all of you have the potential to be the epicenter of something huge? I'm talking about the next big renaissance. And guess what? It will be powered by artificial intelligence. I know. We might not all have this massive dream yet, but what if we did? What if a small town like mine, Lafayette, California, became the place where AI isn't just a buzzword, but rather a force that brings us all together, creating a community unlike any other? I'm just asking you to picture this, Lafayette. Picture the haven, the Mecca, heck, even the Florence of a new AI-powered renaissance. It's not about robots taking over. It's about us and the heart of the people of Lafayette, shaping the future that we want to see. So here's the deal, my friends. We're on a podcast listening mission to ignite these creative sparks and to get everyone, leaders, citizens, young and old, thinking about the incredible potential we have right here. This is not just a story. It's a call to action. Lafayette and small towns everywhere. Let's dream big, think bold, and set the stage for an AI-powered renaissance that starts right here, right now. Uniquely situated in Lafayette. We are semi-rural and we have a great downtown. What we want is to keep our semi-rural quality, but a vibrant downtown to have the best of both worlds.
I've never been there. I've almost been there. I've been on the other side. I've been at Berkeley, and my son was also studying there, and I got married in Berkeley. So it's not that far. The future of Lafayette is to be the mecca of AI. I think that's a great vision, almost like a purpose-related, huge, big idea. Then I think that's a great one. Be at the focal point for the new strategy for the whole community. If that's then linked with this or approached from this perspective of engagement and allowing people to be involved in whatever capacity they can do this or willing to do that, then I think that would be great. And related to what I was saying previously, it would be fun also then to use AI in this process in a way that hasn't been done before, because it hasn't been available in the way it's now. So there would be like a double play that it's here's the future of AI. This is what our community wants to be. And at the same time, doing it in a way that would allow people to be involved, if it's a narrative approach or story or stories or whatever, but use AI to the extent possible.
Eero, I'm going to ask you, because you've done massive research on ESPO and you personally have been involved with the human side of it. From my understanding of it, it was about, our tourism is down. We need more traffic into our city and we need more vibrancy and we've got to get some things moving here. That was kind of my understanding of it. And in light of that, and in light of Lafayette, and now you've heard us talk a little bit about technology, help me make maybe a case to the city of Lafayette about your history, your experiences and research, and us as residents living in it and interested in technology. How can we summarize this into a holistic narrative and story and moving forward with where we are at the moment and the need to be able to handle rapid change and shift the mindsets?
I think there's a lot to learn from cases such as ESPO. It's a real case, and it's almost like an experiment, a very unique one. I was about to say, like, I know of no other where they would have taken the idea of narrative or story so seriously as a new way of understanding strategy. And not only that, but they consistently and systematically involve people, be they internal or external stakeholders in these processes. And it's clearly had a lot of positive impacts in many, many different ways. I would also want to emphasize that Espoo is very much about innovation and technology. So that's really like one of the hubs in Northern Europe. At least they would like to see it that way. It's very much about innovation as well, in addition to these other things. But of course, as a city, cities are different from companies because they have a lot of different kinds of goals and a lot of different kinds of needs. So it's actually hard to strategize because strategizing usually means, prioritizing something over other things. But again, I think the main take has been that this has been very successful in making people part of strategy work, which to me is like the ultimate thing you want to have. Because you can have a great strategy, but it doesn't really help you much if people don't act accordingly. That's the underlying behind this kind of, if people are involved, they feel they can difference with the strategy that they are part of. That's just absolutely great.
I am so glad that we got that chance to talk. And I think these types of conversations are very beneficial to kind of making that next stage of work happen. I think from the takeaway here, there are a lot of parallels between Espoo and Lafayette, San Francisco, and there is a gap. We've identified the gap, Mike, in terms of what needs to happen. And we have a vehicle in terms of how we can do it and why we need to do it. Now the question becomes, where are we going? Where do we want to end up 5, 10, 15 years from now? And I think as a community, if we can come together and use a lot of these resources that Eero has given us, perspective, and kind of the why, and the growing need for why, to preserve it for our kids and the generations after that. That's a great starting point for all of us to come down. And then if Lafayette is your vision, Mike, of a technology mecca, and how do we use AI being the next shiny penny on the block to help us with that? That's even a more accelerated and hopefully a more meaningful way of getting to where Espoo is today after 10, 15 years. Taking that meaningful reason as to why people need to be involved and kind of defining the purpose and the goals, getting that together with tools like AI, I think will help us really get to a state of maturity and beyond for us and the next generations.
If you really love your city and you really care about your family and your future, I don't care what age you are, wouldn't you want to be part of, the story about what your future and your city can become? And I think we've got to use technology as part of that storytelling to recruit and excite the imaginations of the younger generations. I think that helping the younger people of Lafayette, they're going to be teaching AI in high school before long. They got to figure out how to do that. And to recruit them, what do you want the future of your city to be? Become involved in the narrative storytelling about it to make it become reality. And to me, we got to have technology if we're going to reach the younger generation to recruit them into the story.
My kids, my 7-year-old is very receptive to technology. And it's, I guess the way I would put it is they process a derivative way of giving information to them much faster than I do. I have to admit to that. And what I mean by that is kids already know what to expect from, let's say, a show or a live cast or something like that. They seem like they have an expectation that they're hoping to get. And that is conveyed to them so quickly through interpretations of that material in the technology space that I was used to, which is someone explaining to me in plain English, what they mean and how, what the outcome should be. So their brains are wired in a way that is receiving information so then they can process on their end. If you look at it from a graphical point of view, their amplitude, even though it's the same wave, their amplitude is higher than ours in terms of what to expect as starting point of information and then processing that. And I feel like if we don't get with that curve from this generation to meeting that next generation, we will lose our way of transitioning what they need to know and then how they need to excel with that information. So incorporating technology and what AI can do in terms of optimizing the technology is going to help. The rudimentary way in which we convey purpose, value, goals has to come from the origins of where it came from. Because if that's lost, then everything becomes a very robotic exercise and meaning's lost. Sometimes I sit back with my daughter and, do you know why we want to do the multiplication? Yeah, because this could be oranges someday, and then you have to deal with 12 people that want to eat this orange. So I get the fact that calculators can figure that out, but do you understand the meaning behind why? That pause with the human intervention, I feel like provides that depth, which we may lose if we employ AI in a way that takes it from 0 to 100.
I think the ideal way of thinking about these stories or narratives unfolding could be that there's a beginning, and then a lot of people would be invited to share their ideas. This is what they did with Espo 10 years ago with, just web-based surveys. So people, provide their inputs. What do you see the future like? And then you analyze that so that there are some themes emerging. But there's where AI could be very helpful, and thousands of inputs from people in Lafayette or other stakeholders. AI can help to put it all together and provide all kinds of storylines. And maybe there's a next iteration as well. It then goes, what's our strategy really going to be like? And that could again feed back to those different representations. I'm just saying that it would be fantastic, and using AI the right way, in my view, in that appetite is grown. So I really want to follow up as to what you guys where you will move from this stage. I honestly think that there's a unique opportunity. First of all, from this more narrow perspective of like how to do strategy in terms of the process, thinking of it as a narrative, and then secondly, having as many stakeholders involved as possible, and thirdly, involving AI in this. But of course, I also learned that there's a really great case for focusing on AI as making Lafayette become the mecca of AI. Knowing that it's the Bay Area, I could see easily many things coming together real nice here.
Cool Thomas, my neighbor and friend and an MBA student at Oxford, and Eero Vaara, Professor Eero Vaara of Oxford. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you.